So, but by the same token, we must teach the police to extend respect to anybody in the community. That's your fellow American, a fellow human being. And if you treat them the right way, you're very unlikely, again, unless you're dealing with somebody who's completely mentally unstable, to have a big problem if you treat them with respect.
Dr. Carson, since Michael Brown's death, a number of states have passed various law enforcement-related bills on cameras, use of force, police database. As president, would you support anything on a federal level in that vein that could be applied nationally that may ease tensions between police and citizens?
Okay, would I advocate for federal programs for body cameras or other suggestions? I'm not really in favor of a lot more federal programs, to be honest with you. I certainly would not have a problem with block granting to states funding for things like body cams and things of that nature. I would fund it at a lower level than it would take at the federal level, because it doesn't cost as much when you take some of the bureaucracy out of it. And also, for anything that I block granted, I would tell the states that if they're able to accomplish what they need to do with 80% of that, they can use the rest of it for whatever they want. We need to incentivize efficiency within our states. But I really believe that a lot of these issues are going to be handled much better at a local level than they are at a federal level.
Hello, sir. This is Tremaine Lee, MSNBC. Speaking of respect, there are a lot of respectable names on this list, but I don't see any of the Black Lives Matter protesters on this list. Do you have any plans to meet with any of those folks who have been actually on the ground and are part of that Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I have made it clear. The question is, do I have any plans to meet with Black Lives Matter? That I'm very happy to meet with Black Lives Matter. My beef with Black Lives Matter movement has been, I think they need to add a word, and that word is all. All Black Lives Matter, including the ones that are eradicated by abortions, including the ones that are eradicated on the streets every day by violence. And we need to be looking at all of the factors that have kept the black community in a very dependent position for decades. And there's a lot of progress that could be made. There's $1 trillion of assets in the black community. There's only about 10 countries in the world that have $1 trillion annual budget. I mean, it's an enormous amount of resources. We need to be talking about how you turn those resources over in your own community to create even more and reach back and pull other people up. We need to be talking about the education system, because education is the great divide. And I don't care where a person comes from, they get a good education, they write their own ticket. Those sort of things we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about the drugs and the drug dealers and the deleterious effect that they have on the community. We need to be talking about out-of-wedlock births and what that does to a woman's educational possibilities and what it does to that child. It makes them 4 times more likely to grow up in poverty, to end up on welfare or in the penal system. Until we begin to address these issues, we're not going to get anywhere. And as an overall society, we need to address the fact that we only have 330 million people. China has over 1 billion. India has over 1 billion. We have to compete with them on a global scale. We can't afford to be losing our people.
Dr. Carson, just on the line of respect and another topic, I know you say you don't want to get into a gladiator battle with your opponent Trump, but he has leveled some pretty serious charges regarding your faith and the authenticity of your faith. He has said that you weren't always a big man of faith, it happened all of a sudden flying, that this is something for political expediency. And he also said in his words that you were heading into the world of abortion. Would you respond to both of those things, that it seems that he is going after the heart of your faith and your religion?
Well, the question is, do I want to respond to Donald Trump's charges? The answer is no. I really don't. Because, what I have discovered is that the media loves to stoke up controversy and have people fighting each other like gladiators. And I think that's exactly the wrong thing to do. I've made it clear that I was not attacking him. It was interpreted that way by the media, and I think he took the bait. But I'm not taking the bait. I'm not going there. Next question.
Dr. Carson, not about Trump. One criticism that's been levied in a lot of ways about this area is that there are small municipalities, municipal courts that are ticketing people that are getting them kind of caught up in a cycle of debt and warrants. Do you think that should be reformed? And did that come up in the meeting?
That particular issue didn't come up, that, in certain places people might be getting more tickets, more warrants, et cetera. Does that need to be studied? Of course it does. It's the fair thing to do. When we talk about liberty and justice for all, that's exactly what it means. We don't treat anybody specially. We don't persecute anybody specially. And when we find evidence of that happening, we use our intellect and our goodwill to remedy the situation. But let's do it on the basis of evidence. This is one of the wonderful things about medicine. In medicine, we make decisions based on evidence, not on emotion, not on ideology. So bring on the evidence and let's remedy it.
Dr. Carson, you said earlier that race is a significant part of the problem. You talked about discussing solutions a lot today, but what specific steps would you take, potentially block granting body camera funding and things like that? And are you satisfied with President Obama's handling of racism?
Am I satisfied with President Obama's handling of racial issues? And what additional steps would I take to ameliorate the situation of racial conflict in this country? I have no comment about President Obama's handling of the issue. But I think what has to be done is that we need to begin to emphasize relationships. When people know each other, superficial issues become less important. Anybody here who has a close friend of a different race knows that. It just doesn't matter anymore when you know somebody. And we need to foster relationships. We need to get business, industry, academia, Wall Street, churches, community groups involved in investing in the people around them. That's the kind of thing that will allow people to rise. Throwing money at a problem is not an effective way of doing it.
But as president, how do you force those relationships?
Well, as president, you have the bully pulpit and a number of agencies that can help to coordinate the activities of the private sector. I do not believe it is the responsibility of the government to solve all the social problems, to take care of all the ills in our society. Reason that we flourished as a nation early on is because our communities, which were in many cases separated from anybody by 50, 100, or even hundreds of miles, were able to thrive. Why were they able to thrive? Because people took care of each other. If it was harvest time and a farmer fell out of the tree, everybody else pitched in and harvested his crops for him. If somebody got killed, everybody else took care of their family. It wasn't a big government program. It was people caring about each other. I've been a guest speaker at multiple programs around the country that are initiated in the private sector that have had enormous results in terms of bringing people out of poverty, in terms of putting people on the trajectory for success in our society. And the government helping to coordinate and synergize those programs is going to be, I think, much more helpful than what we've done over the last many decades, which is basically find a way to keep people in a dependent situation. And that's not America. Yes?
Dr. Carson, one of the criticisms of President Obama's administration is he came into this job with no executive experience, either in the business world or as a governor. What prepared you in your background for this job, and how would you counter that criticism in your service?
Okay. The question being, you know, people criticize President Obama for not having any executive experience and the kinds of things that are necessary for the job of president. And they say the same thing about me. How would I counter that argument? Thank you for asking that question. She's not a plant. You know, in addition to a very arduous and successful career in medicine, where I had to take a division of pediatric neurosurgery that wasn't even on the map when I became the director, and through very hard work and innovation, by the time we reached 2008, it was ranked by U.S. News and World Report as the #1 pediatric neurosurgery division in the United States. That was hard work, but it can be done. But in addition to that, I spent 18 years on the board of directors of Kellogg and 16 years on the board of directors of Costco. I was the chairman of the board of Vaccinogen, biotech company. My wife and I started a national scholarship program. 9 of 10 nonprofits fell. Ours not only didn't fail, but is active in all 50 states, has won major national awards that are only given to one organization per year. So obviously, in order to do all those things, you have to be able to do more than just medicine. And I find it amusing that, you know, these people say, well, he's an idiot savant. He only knows how to do neurosurgery. Anybody who thinks you can become a neurosurgeon by being an idiot savant is an idiot savant themselves. Any other questions?
Bring up the Superfund site near here, maybe the issues surrounding whether there could be more hearings on the nuclear waste disposal. They would bring that up on the area. Okay.
No, that has not come. That comes up when I go to Nevada. I don't hear very much about it in this state.
Why did you come here?
Why did I come here?
Because so much of what you've said in the past is to de-emphasize issues of race and so forth, and that has been a big matter. Why would you come here?
Okay, the question is, why did I come here? So much of what I've said in the past de-emphasizes race. Because we need to de-emphasize race, and we need to emphasize respect. We need to emphasize respect for everybody in our society. And we need to emphasize fairness and justice for all. And I can't think of a better place than Ferguson to do that.
What new things did you learn about Ferguson that you hadn't known before?
That is a very subtle question. What new things did I learn that I didn't know before? I think I knew all the things that I just talked about, but it has a much deeper impact when you actually talk to the people themselves. It's very much like a few weeks ago when I was in Arizona with my wife at the border. I'd heard all kinds of things about the border, but until I actually witnessed it myself, the impact didn't hit me in terms of the fact that we don't have any border security. It's zero. And that the federal government does nothing to help protect our people from influx. And I'd heard such things before, but I didn't really realize it. I guess it really hit home for me when I saw the expanses of fence. These are the kind of fences that, as a kid, would barely slow us down. But, and in one area, they had cut a big hole in the fence. And they put some barbed wire across it. That's supposed to stop somebody. So the cameramen who were with us, they wanted to shoot us from the Mexican side, and they went through right there. And they were not athletic people, and they had all their equipment, and they were able to film us from the other side. I mean, it made a big impression on me. And by the same token, listening to the people here today, listening to the people who were there, who witnessed the riot, the people who tried to stop rioters from destroying people's livelihood, and listening to the people who were demonized because of the way they looked. It makes an impression. It helps you to understand more about the fabric of our nation and why we're going to have to heal it. Because our strength is in our unity, and we cannot allow ourselves to be destroyed by the purveyors of hatred.
Just to clarify something, so you just said that we need to de-emphasize race, and earlier you said that race is a significant part of the problem. So how do you reconcile those two ideas?
I think that a lot of people perceive everything through racial eyes. But my point is that we don't have to do that. What we have to do instead is to begin to see people as people. You know, as a neurosurgeon, I operated on people from every part of the world. Why was I able to do that successfully? And somebody from China versus somebody from Africa versus somebody from Somalia, somebody from South America, somebody from Kansas. Because their brains are all the same. That's what we need to emphasize, because that's what makes a person who they are.
Last question. Are there any other
Do
questions?
you think the city of Ferguson should be negotiating a consent decree with the Justice Department? Do you think that that's federal overreach and that the DOJ shouldn't be here doing this?
Well, you know, should the DLG be here, or is that sort of overreached? And a consent decree, is that something that should be going on? That did come up in our conversation, and some of the citizens here felt that, on balance, it was probably more hurtful than helpful to have Justice Department involvement. That these things could be handled much better at the local level, and they have been handled at the local level, and people have gotten to know each other, and I could see the affection that they have for each other. And it's so important in our nation that we begin the concept of civil dialogue. Instead of getting into our respective corners and hurling hand grenades at each other, learning how to sit down and put our issues on the table, because we will generally find that we're not as far apart as we think we are. You know, America is a great nation, and it can be so much greater if we stop fighting each other and use our God-given intellect to make it a place where there truly is liberty and justice for all. Thank you.